Hi, and welcome to Take a Beat, episode 12. My name is Tirza, and I'm the digital pastor here at IES. And I am here with Pastor Josh.
Hello,
Pastor Josh, why don't you introduce yourself?
my name is Josh, and I'm the teens pastor here at IES.
So we have Posh here because he was preaching this past weekend at IES. How do you feel?
Feel good.
So before we start, I have a couple of questions for you,
All
but
right.
some of your teens have questions for us.
All right.
So first thing, do you believe in aliens?
Do I believe in aliens? I'm an alien.
Okay.
I'm a vegan. No.
Yes.
No. I mean, I don't know. I don't spend much time thinking of whether or not aliens exist or not.
I don't know. Do I believe in aliens?
Do you believe in aliens?
I think there is always the possibility of it, but I think it doesn't really affect our philosophy or our theology as much. So I think in a practical manner, it really doesn't matter if we believe in aliens or not.
I mean, there's a lot of things that we don't know.
And
We don't
can't
even
explain.
we don't even know some creatures in the bottom of the sea, more so, you know, in
Yeah.
expanded galactic universe.
I mean, you can put down in the comments, do you believe in aliens? Why or why not? You can
Yep.
submit an essay if you want. For Posh, Posh uses a lot of popular one-liners or sayings. Early bird gets the worm. He says that a lot.
Because I'm an early bird.
You like worms? Reason for the
I
season.
like Yuppie worms.
I like the hamburger ones. Where does he get those sayings?
Well, I mean, I feel like early bird gets the worm is not. It's a saying that already exists.
Yes.
Um,
Where did you absorb that saying?
and so I guess I just heard it somewhere, and then I was like, hey, I guess I'm an early bird. I'm not too sure about the worm. I mean, like I said, obviously I don't
How
like
early
worms.
are you an early bird?
Depends. I mean, depends. If I need to catch a 6 a.m. flight, then I'm an early bird like 2, 3 a.m. But on an average day, I would say before 6, I'm normally up.
And I think, well, I think for me, a lot of the times people think that they want to hear from God, like you said, for the big things, big things in life. But knowing God's voice is a relationship, right?
Yeah.
If you're friends with someone and you pick up the phone and you don't see the caller ID, if you spend enough time with that person, you know that that's their voice, whether there's caller ID or not.
Yeah.
And I think that's how I view listening to God. You listen to God in the little things first.
Yeah.
The daily stuff, you have conversations with God about being stuck in traffic for 3 hours, or you have conversations with God about, okay, God, what do I want to eat today? I feel like different things like that, and that's the training for the big stuff.
Yeah.
Because I think if we only expect God to speak to us in the big things, like, oh, this is where you're going to university, or this is the job that you have to take, then how do we even recognize his voice when he's speaking to us when we don't know what his voice sounds like?
Yeah. Like I said, I think, the relationship part is definitely a huge element. But I think also, yes, we journey through life together with Christ, and we're supposed to have this continuous relationship, continuous communication going. But also when it comes to hearing God's voice, I think a crucial element is being able to sit still and just listen. Too many times, it's like, you're in a conversation, it's just constantly going, and somebody's trying to get a word in, and you just don't let that person get a word in. And I think for me, especially, just I was fasting before Easter, just being much more intentional about my alone time with God. I think just really helped there.
Yeah.
Where you just kind of like you sit still, and it's like you put aside all distractions. Like it's just you. It's just me and God. And that's like talking about early bird. That's how I started my day for those 40 days. It's just always like this hour is just a non-negotiable. I'm going to spend time with God, and also just be still and listen to Him.
And it's that thing, that intentionality, right? You have to be intentional, and that means putting away distractions, because even when and I do this, like when you're talking to someone or having a conversation with someone, but they're like, yep, I'm listening to you.
Guys, that's me all the time. If I've ever done that to you, I apologize. But that's not because I'm not paying attention to you. That's just because I'm trying to catch up on messages.
Is this like a confession booth? But that was a great question. Thank you, teens, for submitting those questions. So I thoroughly enjoy your sermon this past week. I've listened to all of them. And so I have a question. When you're talking about refining our character, our lives through relationship, what does that look like in real life?
I think just realizing that each and every single one of us is created differently. And I think, like I said, we tend to want to march to the beat of our own drum. And when something kind of interrupts that beat, it shakes us up a bit. And sometimes we might not always react the best way. Sometimes we don't deal with it the best way. But I feel like for me personally, being in community with others, whether it's family, whether it's work, whether it's friends, whether it's relationships, I think it's just like those different relationships in our lives, those different characters help us grow. And so I'm reminded of that over and over again. And just because I have a certain way of doing things, or I'm wired a certain way, does not mean that that's the only way. And so I think being understanding that people do things differently, being understanding that people function and operate differently, has allowed my character to grow, whether that is through patience, whether that's through understanding, whether that's seeing, oh my goodness, like I have zero tolerance when it comes to being inefficient, and I see this other person like, oh, but this person's really patient, and then I feel like, well, maybe I need to learn to be a bit more patient. Not talking so much about like it's not efficient or whatever, but and I think that's also, at the end of the day, that's God cares of who we are becoming in our character more so than if I get 10 tasks done in a day. Then and so I think it's being aware of that and realizing that God sends those people into your life to shape and mold you. It's like iron sharpens iron.
And I think God cares more about how we are growing than our need for validation. As in, like, oh yes, the beat of your drum is completely valid. I think a lot of the times that's what we want. We want other people to validate us and how we do things, how we do life, how we approach different things. But God is more, not that God, I think God cares about every aspect of our lives, but God cares more about the way we're growing, the way we are becoming more like Christ, than it is to validate every single action or path that we take. So I think that's a really big thing. Okay, you mentioned this, but in your family, who refines you the most?
I think all of them. Like, look, I think I have 3 sisters and a brother. I'm definitely the thinker, the more logical one, and I deal with a lot of people in my family who I love, who who tend to process or work through things more differently and more from a feeling standpoint, you know? And so for me, I don't get it at times. I look there and I'm like, I don't understand. But through time, I've learned that I can't just approach everything through just pure logic and like, you know, and that sometimes there needs to be a bit of like, just the heart, like I would almost say the softer and tender side to it, you know, or like my brother. I mentioned my brother in my sermon. You know, he's cool, he's chill, he's
so creative.
He's so creative. He's the true artist and a musician, I would say, in the family. He's not as neat or as tidy as I am, and so sometimes I'm just like, I don't get it. But as I mentioned in my sermon, it's like being a messy person doesn't make you a bad person, you know?
And sometimes,
but being angry,
yeah,
that's a different story. I don't think that's me. When I'm angry, I don't think I'm exemplifying God's character, you know?
I think, you know, you were talking, you know, we all want to march to our own drums, but I think a lot of the conflict, happens.
Can we add some sound in there? Editing team, Izzy? give me a beat.
Listen, I'm trying to say.
Yes.
What was I trying to say?
Forgot.
Oh,
beat,
drums.
Beat.
But I think the conflict happens when we want other people to march to our drums.
Exactly.
And so we elevate our way of thinking, our way of approaching things to even that of God's. Like, in order for you to be spiritual, you need to do things the way I do things. And I think, like, for you, your quiet time with the Lord happens in the morning. Mine doesn't.
Yeah, exactly.
God knows that I am better after coffee.
Yeah.
And so my quiet time happens around 3 a.m. before I go to bed. And that's when my mind is the most quiet. But I think sometimes we want to, and you mentioned this in your sermon even, that sometimes what we want to do is we want to fix others. And that's not what our focus is supposed to be.
Yeah.
Our focus should be to become more like
Amen.
Christ.
That's right.
Anything to add to that?
That was the point.
Okay.
I think too many times, like I said, we focus on the wrong things. Hence why I used the example of Mary and Martha. And so many times I feel like I miss the point, you know, and we're so focused on like, oh, but this is how it should be, and this is how it should be, and like we're totally missing the point of what God is actually trying to teach us, what God is actually trying to show us. And so too many times, so our focus shouldn't be on trying to change people or fix that, but our focus should be on becoming more like God. And we can become more like God even when those buttons are being pressed. You know, even when you're I feel like it'd be so easy to just say, well, you made me do it, you know, or you know, but I feel like as children of God, like, you know, we're called to know. Well, I mean, I feel like we know better and we should do better.
And I think this is maybe a different interpretation of that verse that you were that you preached on. Choose for yourself this day whom you will serve. But as for me and my household, we will serve the Lord. I think our personal decision isn't just the big decision as in like, oh, I'm going to follow Christ.
Yeah.
But our personal decision is also how we react in the little things.
Yeah, for sure.
And that shows our commitment to Christ.
Yeah.
And I'm actually, whoa, this is so smooth, segueing into the whole conversation about who will you serve? Because you asked that question in your sermon, right? Who will you serve? And one of my favorite quotes from my favorite book, I'll read it. I actually write it down just for this podcast. Just who is your master? For we all have one. No individual, by the very state of existence, can avoid life as a form of servitude. It only remains for us to decide, deny, or remain oblivious to whom or what we serve. So the idea that we actually serve someone with our lives. It's not like it's only about who is it that we serve.
Yeah.
And so, and you talk a little bit more about, you mentioned this, like when we serve God, when we choose to serve God, there are no hidden rooms. What does that mean?
When we choose to serve God, we're saying, God, I'm giving you everything. It's not us just saying, God, I'm going to serve you with 50%,
Yeah.
and then the remaining percent, I need this for other stuff. It's like, it's giving him lordship over everything. It's
Yeah.
like if you have a house, you're giving him the entire house. You're not keeping
not just the top floor.
you're not keeping any rooms for yourself.
Yeah.
And I think, because I feel like right now it's like sometimes when the way we approach is like because there's always so much going on, and I feel like we end up serving so many different things,
And we compartmentalize
exactly
our lives.
And so it's like the work part, the faith part, the responsibilities part, and
The fun
we
part.
justify it in the fun part. But when we say we serve God, when we follow God, we're giving him complete ownership, or it's complete surrender unto him.
And I'll be the first to say that that's easier said than done.
For sure.
Because it's one thing to tell God, oh, I trust you with my life. I trust you with everything that I have. And it's a different thing, actually. Because, for example, I tell you, hey, this is a phone for you. Pick it.
Thanks.
But if I'm not letting go ever,
give me the phone.
I think that's sometimes where my problem lies, is when I'm telling God, okay, I trust you, I want to follow you, but I want God to operate the way I want him to operate.
Yeah.
And at the very basis of it, that's not following Christ. That's right. Asking Christ to follow me.
Yeah.
And so let me ask you this. How do you think we can commit to serving and following Christ every day? Like
I think it's a daily decision. I like I said, I love this word. I love the word intentional. I think I discovered it in my mid-20s. Just how important and how impactful
if you can't tell, we're no longer in our
being intentional is. And so yes, it is this decision, like we're saying, I'm following you, but each and every single day, it's like we need to make that decision. And like I said, even in the little things where we're faced with moments in our day-to-day where it can be very easy to just give into the fun part or to our earthly desires or earthly wants, but even in those moments, we need to like pull ourselves back and say, well, no, I've decided I'm going to serve the Lord. I'm going to follow him. And so I can't serve earthly pleasures, my desires, or the fun part, or my own ego, and choose to serve the Lord. And again, yes, 100%, this is easier said than done, but that's the goal, right? That's what we're working towards. And praise the Lord, God is so merciful and understanding and patient with us. But we just need to continually pursue him, and I think at times when it gets a bit difficult and challenging, and we feel like, oh, but I can't live up to this, or I can't really fully serve him. That's where a lot of people then I feel like maybe this thing isn't for me. Or maybe I'll try again next year. Because like right now, New Year's resolution. Yeah, like right now it's like, but I think it's in those times where we just need to keep on pushing. And I feel like if you're tuning in here today and you're at that phase where you feel like, yeah, I want to serve God, but it's tough and it's like, I don't think I'm ready. I just want to encourage you to keep on pushing and pursuing God. And he understands, that you struggle and it's not easy.
And I think the pursuit, this is a pursuit of Christ, not a pursuit of perfection.
That's right.
Because a lot of the times we want to be perfect, and we're like, if we don't get it, that means like, why am I even trying? But what God is asking, and this is very biblical, it says, work out your salvation with fear and trembling. And working out your salvation means it's a daily thing. And one day it's going to be worse than the others. Other days it's going to be, better than the other, but it's about growth. And I think when we talk about that decision, I think for me, it's not just about choosing in the moment, but it's also about redefining the different parts of our life, rather than saying, oh, I can't have fun. Christ followers have fun too, but I even thinking about it. Even thinking about it in the like reframing everything and saying, okay, what does fun look like? As a follower of Christ, I am not going to go out and get drunk and party like I don't have a savior and I have never been saved. And so we redefine how we do life. We redefine how we do our work, and how we even see the understanding of what is work to us, and even we redefine how we look at ourselves and our identity. And so I think, you're just piggybacking on what you're saying. Every moment, it's that choice to follow Christ, but also to redefine our lives in view of Christ.
And like I said, that's why that was what I started with when I talked about love of God. Like, just God needs to be the standard. That's God's word is the standard, and that's how we redefine everything. And so
So, the team has already told me that we're out of time.
Okay.
But do you have any last words? Things you want to leave people with?
Again, it's a personal decision. Each and every single one of us need to make for ourselves. It's not always going to be the easiest journey, but God is faithful, and He will surely walk with us and journey with us. And like I think you use this term, or the way you put it, like sometimes you just need to wrestle things out with God. But if you're watching today and you don't really know where you're at, I can only encourage you to keep on pursuing, keep on serving, and don't get distracted by the other stuff, because it's meaningless compared to what God has to offer you.
And if you're struggling with this whole thing, and you're saying, maybe this is not for me, we encourage you to take a beat and reassess and keep at it.
That's right.
Because it's not about perfection. It's about working it out with Christ. And so just really glad we can have this conversation.
Always.
And you're very caffeinated today. IES Teens came out with an EP. I want to use this as a way for you to be able to promote. You can promote it now.
Yes, guys, IES Teens just dropped their first ever EP called Back to the Throne. We have 2 songs. We have Love and Back to the Throne. Check it out on all of your favorite digital platforms, on Spotify,
we'll
Apple
put the
Music,
link somewhere
YouTube. It's awesome. And please like, share, and comment and subscribe to Take a Beat.
And listen to.
Yes.
Anyways, thank you so much for joining us at Take a Beat. Please comment with some of your thoughts. And if you want to connect with us, we're on Instagram, we're on Facebook. We have our YouTube channel, IES Church, but we also have an online community where you can connect with people, join our book club and things like that. But again, thank you, Posh, for joining me. Always fun. But again, tune in next week for Take a Beat.
Peace.